And we're back. I'm your host, Logical, and this is Landis Huey, a Seattle area fighting game event organizer and competitor. We've worked together actually quite a bit over the last few years with organizing the Battle for Seattle monthly tournament series. And we are going to bring in some folks from the Mumble Chat, so go ahead and pull them in.
Sweet. Hi guys.
Hey everybody. Welcome
How's
to
it
the panel.
going? Hi.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. So once again, I'm James Hearn, Logical. This is Landis Huey, Huey253. In dialing in from online is Dennis, who is another one of the organizers of Battle for Seattle, as well as many other events in the area. And we have David Brole, something like that.
Brolite. It's German.
Brolite? Okay. Brolite. And Myung from both dialing in, I believe, from Northern California. Everybody
How's it
here?
going?
Hey.
Yep.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us here today. We are kind of here to talk about the fighting game community and what it means to kind of build community and how you can accomplish that, which is something that we've all kind of faced both with organizing events and finding spaces and both online and offline. So
Right.
kind of where do we want to start with that, do you think?
I guess.
I think a good way of starting this would just be perhaps the backstory of our scenes. I think that would be an interesting way of doing
Oh
it.
yeah, absolutely.
Which I will gladly start with.
Yeah, take it away, Dennis.
So, this is pretty interesting. I started off as a Street Fighter guy running our anime tournaments, and now I'm an anime guy running our Street Fighter tournaments. I joined our scene in late 2011 when the Seattle scene was on a heavy decline. Our events were just not getting too many people. I showed up to some weeklies, and it was like me, my buddy, and two people that worked there. Our monthlies turned into something that was no longer able to support people and just went on hiatus. So, I mean, with a lot of regions, you'll see areas that go in decline or have some sort of history, and we kind of had to build it up, and we really did. Most of this was just accomplished through offline. It just so happened that me, myself, and a couple others, we just started attending our events just every single week. Our main center, we were very lucky. We were one of the few places to have like a good open public place in GameClux in the Seattle area. And people just came by every week. Slowly, we got more and more people. It was usually just like one every 2 weeks, but eventually someone would stick around. It got to the point where we had enough people to run small tournaments, so we just eventually got to start up and do that. I held a tournament. It was fun. It was cheap. Next week, all of a sudden, all of these more people came. It went from a group of like 8 to 10 people to now we were getting over a dozen people, up to 20, and it just continued on for weeks and weeks. Seattle lost a lot of its players, and we really had to build it up. And one thing that helped us out a lot was, in addition to the timing and the public place, was just a number of players just being really committed to attending every single week. It's one thing for an event to happen and to give up on it, but for a lot of places, especially if you have somewhere you believe in, you're able to stick around and make something happen. And that's kind of the story of how we went. We have gone from a scene of maybe like 6-person tournaments at the very start and to our monthlies getting over 100 people. And recently we just had Northwest Majors 5, which had Northwest Majors 6. God, I'm a co-organizer and I don't know my own number. Where we had over 450 people just of differing games. It really went from a sad story into something we were good of just because of the commitment and the people being involved in the scene. It really only takes a few people to do it.
Yeah, I had not heard the final numbers for Northwest Major 6, so I was pleased to hear 450.
I'd like to add actually that we had a lot of international presence at that tournament. We had probably the best Japanese Marvel player, Nemo, and Tokido as well. And that's something that most of the tournaments actually can't say.
Yeah. So how about you NorCal folks? Kind of tell us a little bit about the history of your scene, where it's come from, where it's going.
Me and MKim worked together as kind of we tag teamed it a little bit in that I would kind of be the door-to-door salesman, and I would try to gather every player that I already knew. And MKim hosted the venue and game center, and gave us a place to hold all the events, gave us a roof, and he always kept his doors open whenever he could, so that we could foster this community that was always a little bit less. We couldn't really ride on the coattails of any game company's marketing or anything like that. We kind of had to make it for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting. We had I had Game Center open, which was, I guess, our quote unquote our public space. But actually, back in October, I decided to close that down because it was taking too much of my time. And but as it turns out, I moved all my machines to a new location. And the location I got was big enough so I could kind of keep them there and like repair them and work on them. And people would just still ask me, it's like, so are you doing anything on Saturday? And I was like, well, sure, why not? So it was very odd that even after the public quote unquote arcade closed, most of the scene still stayed together. And we just now kind of gather at a new place instead of the old place. And it works out largely the way it used to.
Yeah, it was a spectacularly die-hard scene, and you just don't want to ever lose friends like that, or lose the time you spend together. And as a result, it just stayed alive as this underground thing to now, and it might even be more popular than it was before.
Ironically, I think it is actually. I think because I don't know. I guess people are more invested in it personally. Things run smoother. We get more regular turnouts. I mean, because we were able to move to kind of the middle of nowhere from as opposed to like the middle of the downtown where we used to be. Rent is cheaper, so we were able to bring the prices down a little bit. The financial picture looks better than it did previously, actually. So, I don't know what to say. I mean, the community is great like that, and I'd like to think that for as much as I was able to put into the community, that they've repaid it in kind, and that makes me eternally grateful to them.
One thing I want to bring up here are for our kind of our audience, for our viewers, what are some concrete strategies that we have seen be effective in building local communities and online communities and helping them be kind of vibrant?
Well, I touched base on one of them, and I think it's really important. I see a lot of people make the mistake of kind of trying to talk to everyone, but at the same time addressing no one. And I think that's a huge mistake that is made all the time on social media. And if you take the time to talk one-on-one with people, even if you talk one-on-one with the same audience, like you say you were addressing 60 people before, now you're addressing 60 people face-to-face, you'll get a response. You won't get nearly the same response without actually talking straight to them, pulling them to action individually, as if you were just saying, hey guys, everyone's invited, and then no one shows up.
Absolutely.
I would have to completely agree with that. I mean, I'm sure it's the same for you guys. Our scene has gotten a lot more exciting just when we get like one new person who's just super excited about things.
Oh, yeah,
It's that personal connection that really makes a difference. Or if you actually manage to get someone out, one thing I used to do a lot of when we were smaller is just spend a lot of time talking with them and, figuring out what their backstory was. It means a lot and can get people to return to events when they might not otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people in the community don't realize is how imposing we can seem and how cliquish we seem, even though we might not necessarily be so, right? I mean, it's loud, we're playing games that not a lot of people play, we seem to have our own vocabulary, we don't even speak English, it seems like a lot of the time. Like, it's just a really imposing place to step into. So, I mean, it is super important for someone to be cognizant of that and to make the steps to go up, introduce themselves, introduce them to other people who can kind of, also foster a relationship with them, and just take your time to really help give them a sort of a human transition into this very sort of foreign community.
Mm-hmm. I think that is actually really important. I'm thinking back to my own start into the fighting game community was back at the release of BlazBlue Calamity Trigger. I went to a small play and trade tournament in Seattle and met Brent Cleary, who was one of the original organizers of Northwest Majors. And so he beat me out with Talkaka's 2A. Jab, 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 jab. I having played fighting games for all of a week, had no idea what to do. But we started talking after the event and just kind of hit it off. And he's like, I've got this thing going on next weekend. You should come. And that was Northwest Majors 2. And it went from there. I met the BlazBlue players, met Veteru, and now here I am today traveling around broadcasting tournaments and organizing them and just kind of generally being dialed in. But it started with one person saying, hey, you should come out to this thing.
That's really how it works. I know I met this one poor girl who went to Game Center to play Street Fighter, and that's just not really a game that we play there. But I took the time to, find out who she was and why she was there, and I just sat down and was like, you know what, let's learn Street Fighter. Let me show you some of the things about fighting games, because I knew enough about fighting games in general to just, get her someplace to go, show her that I wanted to talk to her and introduce her to the community, and we're still good friends now.
Wait, who was this?
It was Shelly.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that's basically it.
That was the entire story, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we do play Street Fighter, but yeah, I would have to say, unlike the Northwest scene, the anime scenes and Marvel scenes are pretty separate. I don't know if that's necessarily by design, but I think a lot of it is by choice of some people. But, I don't begrudge that. Some people mix, some people don't. So what are you going to do?
One thing I haven't...
And that's a good point. You can't really force communities together. There has to be some kind of common ground there. And if there isn't common ground there, it's probably better to just kind of let it play out.
Yeah, especially if there are two that don't mesh and you're forcing them together, I mean, that's really doesn't really provide the best experience for everyone. But for the longest time, I always wanted to get the Smash scene involved in our events, but I knew it was something we weren't able to really provide. So us trying to get them involved was, a really slow process where I just got to know everyone, hang out, have them give me a ride so I don't have to walk home. Things like that. We were really lucky here just because we came from, we all started off together. We all kind of branched off to our different games. I mean, even if they don't play the same game as you, you never know who you're exactly going to get. I mean, I always argue my secret scheme for building everything up is I'm just stealing everyone for our games. But it works out because, I mean, it's like... we all play fighting games, right? I mean, we all react the same way when we block a DP, We know
some of us don't block DPs, actually. Some of us just eat them.
Really?
Yeah,
we react the same way to that too. So
I think you're painting with very broad strokes here. Some of us don't actually block, and I think it's very presumptuous and discriminatory to think that we all block. And so
maybe I just want to be different. I gotta dodge.
It's very offensive to some of us.
I liked the path that Dennis was talking about, though, in that I think there's a lot to be said in just playing everyone's game. In the specific context of fighting games or any other game like that, it's kind of like learning a language, where if you can speak their language just a little bit, just to show that you've at least tried, you can get a conversation, it can go places. And if you've never touched their game, it's not going to.
Right. Thinking about this, one thing I have been noticing the last year or two, is that at least in the Pacific Northwest, the kind of the Capcom scenes and the Air Dasher scenes have been getting a little bit closer. We added Marvel and Street Fighter to Battle for Seattle, and all of a sudden we had a whole new set of faces who were there. I was a little bit leery of that at first, actually, because we had started the event specifically because there weren't any events for our games, but there were events for those Capcom games. And so, but I was like, but Capcom has their own stuff. Why would we do that? But it's actually been great because people are getting to know each other. They might dabble in a game that they didn't play before. They might, even if it's something as simple as, oh, we all go to Denny's together afterwards. That actually means a lot. And I feel like I can credit both that, the fact that a lot of the games that were not at, say, Saturday Slugfest, which was the Northern Monthly as opposed to the Southern Monthly Battle for Seattle, added a lot of games so that there's a lot more overlap in player base and people who are there, but also like some specific players who got deep into both scenes, or like I give a ton of credit to Dennis, who has just done immense amounts of work just to keep everything running smoothly. I don't know what we'd do.
Easiest work in the world.
We'd be dead.
I mean, it becomes so easy once you see someone like more than once,
Mm-hmm.
I'll see someone, I'll see Huey for the first time, all of a sudden there's this big, tall, imposing black guy,
Oh.
I don't know about
But-
imposing.
Yeah, I think I'm a nice guy. Yeah.
Huey's adorable. I can vouch for him.
Man, Huey, the troll is strong, I will say that. But you just see these people over and over. It becomes easier to get to know with them. You strike your first conversation, you do things like that. And I guess when it comes to building a community, I mean, it's easy when people see each other over and over. It's when there's that commitment there. It's really just getting people for that first time and showing them that they have something in common with all these people they're here with.
Absolutely. Especially fighting games are about as brick wall of a learning curve as any genre out there.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's its own lingo, its own discussion, its own there's a lot of concepts that that are critical to understanding the game that are not at all obvious.
There's
Pick up and
so
start
much,
playing. Yeah.
so much we just take for granted doing this, and a lot of people don't get this.
Yeah. A lot of it actually. And
I was gonna
there's
say-
a dearth of good information online about a lot of this, but if you sit somebody in a room with some folks who do understand it, and if you've got even just one person willing to teach, a lot of it can be imparted pretty quickly.
And there's also, I mean, and this is sort of a smaller facet of it, but especially people's first time coming out, they're losing. And that never feels good, right?
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
every time you meet a new face, they are having their worst performance in that game that they've ever had.
Yeah.
These are people who have probably killed their friends. Nobody in their family wants to play them anymore. They think they're awesome. They go online, they win, and then they come here and they're losing every.
Yeah. Some of us are still losing.
Well, fair enough. But
Losing
0
Street
and 2,
Fighter.
right? So it's really I think that's something to be cognizant of as well. Whenever you see a new face the first time at a tournament, you are talking to them on their worst performing day that they've ever had, most likely. Unless you're like Payne or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But
Just
There
wants the
are
tournament.
very rare exceptions. There are very rare exceptions.
There
yeah.
are definitely exceptions. The very first time we had Darren, who is now an up-and-coming Marvel player, he came out, he's beating all our guys all of a sudden. I was assisting the tournament he showed up with. I'm just looking at the guy. He goes to me, he's like, is this one of your friends? It's no, I thought you knew him. We eventually just talked to him, try to figure out how he found out about us. By the way, this is really important to do at an event, figure out how you're getting people. And we just asked him, did you find out about us from SRK? And he just goes, what's SRK? And this was years ago, before Facebook and everything else took over, which I guess is another point that's worth talking about as well.
Yeah, definitely. To that end, there's actually a large amount of people out there watching streams. And if your commentary is unintelligible, you might be losing a lot of people that could be showing up where, maybe if you simplified your vocabulary just a little bit, made things just a little bit clearer, or,
Or just
made sure that
didn't
you're-
allow the insane guy on the mic, right?
Exactly. Just a little bit of warm
that is the
personality
struggle.
and open arms, then you could be losing all kinds of people that, may share your passion.
Which, to give credit to the people who don't allow, that crazy person on the mic, it can be hard. This can be a friend. This can be, someone you trust and enjoy talking about. And all of a sudden they're making an impression out there that's, not too strong to people to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, before I got into the scene, I watched some replays on YouTube, and then I watched streams for pretty much a year straight.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people's story.
Yeah, I didn't watch any streams beforehand because my internet was very, very slow.
Oh.
But I eventually fixed that.
And just to date myself, I grew up in a fighting game scene that did not have streams.
Mm-hmm.
So I was forced to go out to, Evo and all these other tournaments just on blind faith that I would meet people there and have a good time.
You are a brave man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
So
want
that
to
just
speak a little
happened.
bit to the concept that, people are watching. Like, if somebody comes in the door, then you've practically already won.
It's not over.
It's not over, but if they have made that step of coming in your door, then you are a huge leg up on the person who read about your event on Facebook, or read about it on some web bulletin board, or saw about it on Twitter, or watched your stream and decided, no, that's not for me, or no, I don't feel like it right now. Like, if you can get somebody to come in the door, that's an amazing first step.
You got the alley-oop from an NBA player right there. You just have to put it in the basket.
Yeah, you just have to get it in. It's like you just need to put, like golf, just put it in. If they've made that step of making that first contact, then pay attention to that. Pay attention to who the new faces are. Talk to them. Find out why they're there, who they know, who do they live near, who can you introduce them to help them realize what the local community is like. Those kinds of things.
All this will get them to return. I mean, getting them there is one thing. I wish I had my statistics available, but I remember it's about a third of the players all the players I have on record in our scene, they go to one event and they generally don't come back. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. It can be they lost and they felt they weren't good enough to be able to do this. It could be they didn't find anyone to touch base with. It could be they decided, maybe this isn't for me. What we have ultimately is, as a fighting game scene, our genre is very niche compared to other things, and we really survive on each individual that comes out. Sometimes you'll find a group of friends, but it's very, very rare you do this. It usually just grows very slowly at a time. I mean, each person has their own individual story. You may see one big event get a huge swelling of people, but I mean, they all have their own story on how they got there, and it's important to talk to them and get them through. It's a lot harder in larger scenes, but especially when you're trying to build something out, making that connection is really important.
Mm-hmm. I've made a similar but different revelation on people that showed up at Game Center. It turned out that the most often we would get people to stay is if they came alone. And if they came with one or two friends, it was actually way harder to get them to stay. And I think that was just because they wouldn't immerse themselves in the community. So if anyone's watching that is interested in something like this, please take that leap of faith and, go out to people and talk to them. And I'm sure they'll want to talk to you as well. Don't close yourself to their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, a lot of people, I find that, we were able to get a lot of
I'm sorry, I think you're breaking up there.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, we were able to get a lot of solo people to come and return. And actually what really helped cement that was when they found other people that they kind of knew already there. That's actually, I think, what cemented down a lot of regular attendance. Going there solo and unexpectedly meeting people that you sort of already are acquainted with is really powerful.
One thing I do want to mention is the importance of having a public space, a neutral ground where people can meet and not feel like, or where everybody can feel welcome. One of the reasons I'm specifically not going to try to drag out any dirty laundry or make references to specific individuals here, but a big part of the reason we organized Battle for Seattle was that at that point in time, a lot of the scene meetups were happening in the homes of specific individuals, and other individuals, for various reasons, did not feel comfortable either inviting people into their home or being invited into that home. And so things actually fractured quite a bit for the Pacific Northwest scene. And I know I had a very long discussion with Landis here about how that was unhealthy.
Yeah.
And actually he approached me and we're both like, yeah, this is not good. This is not a healthy way for a scene to grow. And
Yeah.
so we reached out to Shandor, the owner of Game Breakers, and that having that once a month space where we can say everybody is welcome, please come here, everybody will be here, it will be fantastic, has been huge in terms of making people feel comfortable, making people feel like that they can be welcomed, and not having that additional social stress of trying to host strangers in somebody's home. I do.
It feels very natural. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on. Go on.
I was just going to say that it feels very natural to play at a friend's house, but it is no place to foster a scene. It just can't do it. It doesn't have the space. It has too many liabilities. You have the implied personal problems that will happen if anyone is ever upset with any person. So, a neutral space is absolutely vital. It really is.
Oh.
Yeah, you still kind of need both. Like, for me personally, I've started hosting weekly events in my apartment, and it's not quite open to the public. I invite people who I know who are in the area and are interested, but I feel like you kind of need both.
You will retain people like that, and you will foster friendships, but it can't grow.
I think you're right.
It really can't.
Yeah. We grow in the public space, and then we nurture that growth in the private, I think is
absolutely
in the private.
So one benefit of us just growing our scene in the Northwest through public spaces is we're pretty much comfortable with most people. But I mean, even the people we willingly invite, they're not willing to come out just because they're not used to going to a private place as opposed to one that's public. Even before Battle for Seattle on our events at Game Clucks, the most common place to meet was Preppy. Thank God we had Preppy here in the Northwest, keeping our games alive. But it was still, everyone was welcome. Everyone knew this. But it was that it can get a little bit cliquey like that, and not everyone always feels welcome. And it's what goes to David said. It becomes hard to grow when you don't have a public space. And I feel like us talking here have been pretty lucky, but they're in terms of land centers and then, of course, and everything Young has done. But I mean, there are other options as well. Seattle has moved from a variety of different places. We used to hold sessions on campus, for example. That was a big one. We were lucky to have a bunch of land centers come up. So, I mean, it's usually worth reaching out to see if there's anyone interested there. I don't know. Are there any other ideas from people out there and just like finding a good public space? Like if you're trying to find somewhere and it's somewhere that's not established and you really want to move this out of someone's home, what would you do?
Well, for me, I got started running events in a club in my university days.
Yeah.
That's where I got started. I was one of the founding members of a club, and that meant that we could get space in classrooms and we could advertise on campus and we could invite everybody. Even if they weren't a student, they could come. And we had a small online presence where we kind of found locals who were not necessarily students who were interested. And that's where I got my start in terms of event organization, building a scene, building a community. And here I am too many years later, applying a lot of those same skills and those same thoughts. But for me, I got started in that university setting.
It's a very low commitment, low investment way to start any community, any college or university. If you just go to a university, there's gamers. Always.
Yes, always.
It's a place that is just going to be very popular. So it made it makes perfect sense, and it's probably one of the cheapest ways to do it. So, you know, if you have that interest and you're out of college, you've arrived. That is your community center.
Yes, you're done. Well, you're started.
Yeah, right.
One other thing that I would add is that, like, having been a small business owner, I have to, like, perspective that you might not understand is especially like for smaller places, like places that are like franchises or basically not part of the large corporate structure. Every every hour, every second that they don't have people in their store is they're losing money. So they actually, a lot of businesses actually want to have people in their store. Um, Now, to what degree that they want them there, that's always variable. But I would say if you're looking at a place and thinking, man, it would be cool to have people there. This seems like really cool. I wonder if they would be open to us, you know, holding something here. The answer by default would probably be yes. Um, no business owner wants to like have an empty store. So, you know, again, what you will have to pay for that or the logistics around that will vary depending on, you know, how much they like you, how much they know about your event, how much risk that they sense there is in this. But like, don't be afraid to approach businesses, managers, business owners, and ask them because chances are you'll get a positive response.
So for Game Clucks, in terms of fighting games, it all started for Smash over here. And how that started exactly is Game Clucks went over new ownership. They found out about this, and the Smash community reached out and said, we would be interested in doing these events here. And after talking out more, that's how it worked out. And now they've been doing it for like 10 years at this point. And that was how fighting games went too. It was actually a group of ex-Smashers. You know, they were getting into the Street Fighter 4 thing. It was pretty fun. They knew where they went to before, and they just reached out to Game Clucks once again to see if they could hold events. And that's how it happened and how it built up. My first experience was a friend of mine just wanted to play Mortal Kombat with other people. So he reached out, found out about this, talked, and worked things out. It's exactly what Mung said, and it's really important on not everyone will be receptive to this. There are other things to consider on it. But it's something that definitely benefits them, not only in terms of getting more bodies to it, but bringing more attention to the place you're going. Hopefully good intentions with that, and just bringing more promotion to it. All of a sudden their name is out there for something else you can do. So keeping an eye on LAN centers, other game shops of other sorts. I see a lot of small game shops just hosting events as well, and just working out and taking charge on it. I mean, a lot of people also, I think, set too high goals. I don't think everything has to be a tournament, and that's definitely not how we started here either. We just started out with people wanting to play fighting games. We didn't even say a specific one. We said, we're bringing this. If you want to play any of this with us, come on by. And that was how we got started.
I would have to totally agree with that. One of my pet peeves is like everybody who wants to have an event or a gathering, like defaults to tournament mode. And I really try and I guess not discourage, but I really try and like temper people's expectations of that and be like, listen, you know, you might not want to make this a tournament. You might only get like 8 people here, and maybe not all of them want to be in a tournament. You might get a better reception just by like having casuals all night.
So a lot of places feel that tournaments are the way that you bring others in, but it's also can be really difficult for retention. A lot of the players who are most dedicated to us are the ones who not only go to tournaments but are able to practice in between. I mean, that should kind of be the point of a tournament in the first place, you know. I lost to this, I should improve at this, I'm going to go ahead and do that and then test myself again. With just casual sessions, it helps a lot. There's a lot less pressure, and it can be a lot more enjoyable. I mean, you have someone losing, but it's a different experience losing that way than losing in a structured event like this. It's not 2-0 and you're out, and other people are continuing.
I absolutely agree.
I also want to bring up there's one other way that people, I think, go into the scene. For myself, actually, this is how I went. I did play online originally, but I got bored of beating up people online like David. He's so free. So after a while,
Wow.
after I got tired
How
of
long
beating,
are we into the stream before that came out?
yeah, after a while of beating David
Not
up
long enough.
blindly, like with one eye, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go offline and see if there's anybody good. And the only place that I knew where I could go to play fighting games with people was GameWorks. It was just like our arcade in downtown Seattle. It's not a huge like fighting game thing, but it's just a big arcade, and they happened to have Blaze Blue Commodity Trigger at the time and a Street Fighter cab next to it, both which were like really full. And I went there one day because I just wanted to see if how I compared to everybody else, and I was kind of like at first like I was doing pretty well against pretty much everybody I played. Not all the best players were there. But there was this
I wasn't there, yeah.
There was this Tawakaka player, actually, going back to your story. There was a Tawakaka player that also was 2-Aing under everything I did too. Yeah, and I could not do anything about it. And
it takes a while to figure out how to block.
Yeah,
blocking is hard.
Well, actually, the character that he was playing in that version didn't have an answer, but we can ignore that for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, there may have not been an answer to that, and I actually did my I lost, and to me I was like, darn, like I don't want to lose. So what did I do? I go on the internet, I go to dustloop.com, and I tried to figure out what I could do, and I go to the matchup forum, and then in the matchup forum it was just like, you can't win. And I was like, no, like that's not how. I'm not gonna be denied like that. But the whole point of that bringing that up actually was because during those days of GameWorks, no one goes there anymore for fighting games. But during those days, actually, there would be a lot of new faces there that I'd be playing, and some of them were really good, some of them, or whatever. And then I would just be like, hey, what's up, man? Like, oh, that's like a cool combo or something. And then try to figure out like how often they come, what days of the week they come. Usually it was just everybody shows up on Thursdays, but sometimes there's new guys. And so it was like always like, hey, I need to make a one-to-one connection and then try to figure out when you're coming. And maybe if you're coming and you live here, I have a friend who lives like 10 minutes from you. Maybe you guys could like meet each other in carpool or something like that. And I felt like me, Kaigu and Plastic Chicken and Bohemian Polka, we carpooled the GameWorks for like a year, and it was like an hour drive. And then that's like how we all started, because it was my first day and it was Polka's first day. I think the interaction between all of us together really cemented that. And I felt like that carpooling and that meeting people, that one-on-one experience and talking to people and trying to hang out with them, I think really helped a lot.
And again, if I might just like date myself as being the old man here, what Huey just described was basically how people played fighting games up until about 2008 or 2009. That is what we call arcade. That was the experience. That's how you got competition. That's how it worked. There was no other way. Twitter didn't happen. There were no streams, nothing else. Like, that's how you found people.
Let's talk a little bit about finding people, and because we haven't really gone into this, but the whole online component, which is actually really important. We've talked a lot about kind of your local scene, but a lot of that organization, even just the orchestration, happens online these days.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about specifically recruiting new people that maybe you see online through social media, or like actually through the games, like playing the games? Or
I can cover social media if you have a game example.
Sure. Let's talk social media first.
Okay, so I got into fighting games because of a Smash Brothers Brawl forum, which a man that went by the name of Plan 9 at that time invited me just kind of impromptu to a Los Angeles event, and I got destroyed, which is, pretty standard. But through that, I got the confidence to go to a bigger tournament later called Genesis. And at that tournament, I was able to, kind of like find my love of fighting games in Blaze Blue, which was the first fighting game I decided to take seriously after that. It was all because on this, just kind of innocuous forum, someone, just extended his hand and said, this is a thing that exists and you can go to it. It seems so obvious when you're in the community that is the case. But if you've never been to it, it doesn't really exist. You might see videos of it, you might see tournaments, and you might know the results and the players, but it might never occur to you could even go to it. And that was the case for me, which is weird, but it was completely true.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I knew the basics of what was happening in Seattle, but the motivation wasn't actually there. It wasn't until a friend brought me out that I was able to finally make that jump.
Huey, did you have a gaming example of that?
Oh,
What was that?
well, yeah, actually, I've how I started playing BlazBlue actually. Originally I played Street Fighter 4 09. Yeah, I'm an 09er.
Me too. High five.
Yep,
High
same.
five, Internet 5. Anyways, so
Goddamn kids these days.
I was playing Street Fighter online, and I'm okay or whatever, but I play this guy. I was playing soccer at the time, and it was vanilla, and this guy was playing Zangief. Maybe I cannot remember. I don't remember the guy's name either, but we played a game or two, and then we voice chatted about it a little bit, and then from then we just kept talking about stuff, and then one day he suggested that I even try this game out, and normally I wouldn't have even thought why would I play this game or whatever. I didn't play any fighting games, but he was like, come on, man, I think you'll like it. And I tried it for a good 20, 30 minutes, and then another couple hours another day, but I was like, I'm not really feeling this game, man. I don't know. I'm going to go back to playing Sakura and Ryu and Shoryuken and stuff. But through that, I could have stopped playing it, but my friend insisted once again, hey man, maybe you should give it another shot. We'll talk about it and play and stuff. And he eventually got me to try Bang, who I ended up playing for the last 4 years outside of the most recent year, which I switched to the cat that ruined my life when I started full circle,
Yep.
And funny enough,
No, don't worry though. The cat's good. She'll take you to grand finals of Evo. It's gonna be great.
funny enough, that was actually the first character I tried when I played BlazBlue, but it felt really weird, and I was like, no way. And then now I'm playing Takak. But the whole point of that was that just through the online interaction with someone over voice chat and just pushing me a little bit, I mean, it didn't hurt him that much to do that. But he did do it, and it meant the world for me. And he actually introduced me to David, who was showing me some stuff or whatever before I beat him up, And then
Hey, don't forget, there was a good year or two where you could not beat me in tournament.
Yeah. Oh, we can bring that up too. Yeah, I was
Tell me more about this later.
also losing to David in real life when it matters in real life, and that was hard, but we had a rivalry going on, and that also was something that was really fun for me.
It was fun. It was really fun.
Really wanted me to come to all the tournaments. Hope that guy's there. I was I kind of don't want to play him because he beats me all the time. But I want to beat him, and it took a really long time until I could actually beat him, and it stuff like that. Just me and David have talked a lot in the years too. We talk about random things. He actually showed me match videos of Dora for the first time. I never watched Japanese match videos.
Really?
Yeah, and you sent me a video of Dora playing or whatever. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. This is the best thing ever. This game is great. I love everything. I want to play this game forever now. So that was actually thanks to you, because I might not have really been that competitive other than maybe trying to beat you online. After I eventually did it, I had to beat you offline too, and that happened too. Right. So, I mean, there's not much else we could do. We played Persona 4 Arena once in tournament, and I think I beat you in that game too.
Well, that was, Well, let's not get into excuses. Let's save that for another time.
Let's move on.
Is this what this conversation is turning into? All the times Landis beat David.
I'm just flexing.
I'm pretty sure that's the sole reason for being in this.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the whole the online example. But really, though, David is another person who I think is a big part of why I play fighting games today, and I organize tournaments, help organize, anyways, because he reached out to me to at least talk to him. We talked on AIM. He told me he was going to. It was probably a month into me like going to the arcade regular. He told me he was going to this tournament in SoCal, I believe, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be there. I might even get to do commentary." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I was like, "I heard that there's two guys that I just met at the arcade that demolished me that are going, man. Like, I wonder if anybody could beat them." And then Veteru won the tournament.
Yeah, I've heard this story from a different angle, but yeah.
Yeah. So that was like we talked about it, and then he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there. It's so cool. You should watch." I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch." Good luck.
And then you watched the worst commentary I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah,
Veteran.
Veteran. Yes, he told everybody about Veteran.
Veteran.
Oh man, inside jokes. Oh, let's forget that tournament ever happened.
but it was important because I got to we talked about something over the internet, and then I just met the dude the next day, and then you meet the dude the day after, and then and it's crazy that could even happen, and that's probably.
It shows just how small of a community we are. It's like you see someone on stream one day, and then say you take a trip to Evo. I mean, you'll see them there. And it helps. I mean, the biggest thing I took, especially from what Landis said, and it's something we all talked about. It's that personal connection, that one-on-one, that not seeing someone and ignoring something. It's one person can just make such a big difference, not only in them coming to your scene, but in you just being that person to bring others to your scene. Whether it's just from a forum post, say from Dustloop, Shoryuken, maybe you see a tweet of people asking questions. During Northwest Majors, I answered a bunch of questions about Northwest Majors and got pretty good response from that. Or, I mean, my best method is I see someone in stream chat, I ask them how they're doing, where they are. I mean, oftentimes you'll find locals, and them being able to talk to someone who's actually there will make a big impact, because all of a sudden, they'll come here and it's like, oh, I know your name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also, one thing I wanted to add is that when you find somebody who's playing pretty well online, let's say you go online and start playing, and you find somebody who plays well or maybe even beats you, send them a message. Say hi, because 99% of the time, whenever somebody communicates with them online, it's probably to say you cheating fag or whatever, right? Rematch me. So if they get a message from you that's hey, you're pretty good. Are you around this area? You should totally come. It's like a breath of fresh air for them. You stand a pretty good chance of they're actually coming out.
This was how our Tekken scene kept themselves alive. They would play in the horrible Tekken 6 netcode, find someone who is decent, and be like, "Are you local? Let's please play."
I know for the current version of BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma, or well, just CP in general, there was I can think of 3 or 4 individuals just between Polka alone asking them after playing them, "Oh, he's a 4-bar. That means he must be
must be close."
Yeah, must be close. So let me message him or him or her, and 3 or 4 of them go to every single tournament and are competitors and beat me sometimes, and I get mad, and I can't be I gotta show everybody what's up. I have to be ready for Evo when I win, obviously.
Yeah.
And then Landis is like, "Goddamn net players." Fuck them. One thing I wanted to add earlier, about finding spaces and public places that you can host. And this is sort of, one of those not so fun things, but this is especially to organizers. Predictability and regularity are really, really big for a lot of reasons. The primary reason is for your players. They need to know that week in and week out, or every month, they can count on this event happening at the same time, right? Consistency is so, so, so important. On the flip side, consistency is really important if you're using space from somebody else, especially from a business owner, because put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Like, let's say you have a monthly there, and it's like the third Saturday of every month. You are probably going to need to plan to stay there late because tournaments always go over time. You might even hire extra staff because you know that your place is going to get crunched by 3 times the normal number of people. So, like, business owners plan around these things and they need to plan around you. And when on a random month, a week before the normal event, you say, hey, guess what? We're canceling this month. That really throws a wrench into things for them. So much so that a lot of times they may not even want to deal with you anymore. So discipline, predictability is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that can be kind of difficult in our community, especially discipline, because we're something that's completely organic. I mean, we are really a community in that we don't have any greater company going over us. You know, before fighting games, I played Magic the Gathering, and seeing people come and go, it was kind of whatever, because not only was the game very popular, but there was this huge machine behind it as well. There is nothing like that just for our genre, and not even to talk about just the individual games we all play.
Yeah, it's kind of...
But on the flip side... Oh, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, for the fighting game community in particular, that's really important. It's, I think, one of the big distinguishing factors between it and some of the social dynamics of things like, say, Magic the Gathering, where Wizards is a huge organizing force, or even, say, League of Legends or Dota, where the respective developers, publishers are a big force in running events. You don't see that in fighting games so much.
What I will say, though, is, you know, as unfun as that sounds, if you do that, if you are able to maintain that, the dividends it pays are large. It may not seem that way, but the fact that you have a reliable event that people can plan around and sort of like have confidence in that it's going to be at the same time every month or every week, it's really, really big. And honestly, I think that was one of the biggest deciding factors in people following us after Game Center, the original Game Center closed. It was the fact that we had this very disciplined, very regular, every month sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The same for us. It's always the same weekend of every single month. And it's true for all the other events they hold. I mean, when we look at the Smash events that are held here at Game Clucks, I mean, it's been the same weekend for like 5 years straight at this point. It's like changed once in the period that they've run in the past 10 or so. It means a lot, and it's something that can be difficult, but it always pays off. I mean, some people, when we say they need discipline, what happens is perhaps they just think it won't work out after a poor session or such. But when you have something regularly, eventually people do come to it.
Yeah, you really, as an organizer, stick with it. Don't take one bad month or one bad week the wrong way. Stick with it. People will notice.
It's a very constant curve in starting up any kind of business, and it works the same with communities, honestly. There will be a rush at first, and it'll feel great, and then a lot of people will drop off the face of the earth, and you have to be ready for that. That's just a reality. But after that, it will steadily increase over time, especially if you're taking, social media measures like Facebook, Twitter, Meetup, and, these things that no one ever had before now that we now do. It's a very special moment in time right now where you can build community better than ever before.
And perhaps if no one has anything else to say, maybe we can just touch more on the social media and how to use that.
Sure, let's dig into that some.
So this is probably Myung's area, but things are kind of different. It's not arcade, and things have gotten a lot more complicated and diverse. It's no longer just a forum post or an arcade or something like that. All of a sudden, we have Facebook, which everyone might not have, Twitter, which everyone might not have. We're split in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I would have to say fragmentation of like communication networks is a really big problem, right? Because people ask me questions. I was like, well, didn't you read the Dustloop forum? They're like, oh, I never go on Dustloop. I only use Twitter. Or, you make a tweet and people are like, oh, I don't have a Twitter. I only use Facebook. And so it's really difficult to keep things synced all the time.
You really do have to
Yeah.
just be on all of them constantly.
Yeah, it's
And it's the same consistency where if you are constantly on all of them, you won't miss anyone. No one's going to fall through the cracks there. But, it does take more time in that regard.
yeah, it definitely is a lot of work to keep all of that information synchronized and published and everybody in the loop. I feel like with Battle for Seattle, that's something we're still trying to get a full handle on. We've been doing well enough that we've had turnout for our events, but I feel like we could be doing more on that front.
Yep, definitely for sure. Wish there was like button you could hit that would send all then refresh all, like
update all the forums.
Yeah.
For each of the games that we do, and just one
So-
button. But right now there's not.
So what we're saying is, prospective developers, if you can do all this for us, we will use it.
Yes.
We'll not
Yes.
have much money for this. We will have no money for this, but we will use it. It's a lot of work.
Well, you
and
realize then that all your Facebook and forum posts will have to be 140 characters.
Yeah, that's okay. I can spread a message in 140 characters.
That is a talent you
Tournament.
start to develop.
Tournament on this day. Talk to Huey.
Yeah. Here's his number. Call him if you have questions.
You won't miss him.
Yeah, literally.
But it's a lot of work for everyone to put on. For Northless Majors, it wasn't just a website. It was Facebook, it was Twitter, it was literally every single forum for every single game we run.
That was a lot of games.
It's a lot of work, and especially responding people can be tough. I mean, this has become kind of a difficult job as people have more roles to manage, and all of a sudden people are getting. Now we have streams, now we have tournaments, now you have to reach out to others. I mean, one big thing I can say about this is that, and I hope I'm not getting too off track with this, but if you're someone who's in a community, I mean, most are usually looking for help too. If this is something you're really involved in and you want to give back, maybe there's something you can do for them as well.
Definitely.
But fragmentation is very difficult, but it's very important to hit all these sources just in how different it is. A lot of people I see don't update either Shoryuken or Dustloop, and this is something I've been very guilty of many, many times. But they're still just very important sources because they're really easy to see in public. There's a hesitation towards using some forms such as social media, and it's been something that's been hard to get some of even our older players in order to do. But really, just hitting out as many sources as you can is just so important in keeping them updated.
Yeah, it kind of gets into that whole casting a wide net. The more people who hear about your event by some means or another is just the greater probability that somebody will come in the door. And at that point, you can use all the things we've been talking about to kind of make them feel welcome, make them feel like they can be part of this community. You can introduce them to people who are near to them. You can do all of these things. But a lot of it, will never come in your door if you haven't got the word out there.
Which is just such an important step, getting someone actually there, as opposed to everything else. So I guess what we're saying is it can be tough, but it's something that's worthwhile, especially as this is where regularity puts a lot of importance and really pays off, because all of a sudden people know, it's on this date, we're going to be there.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the dividends that regularity pays off, is it does a lot of the work for you, right? Like after 5, 6 regular events that have been at the same place at the same time on the same weekend or on the same date, you no longer have to keep telling people about this, right? It becomes habit. So again, this is another area where discipline and consistency pay off.
Yeah, I will mention that helps you keep your current community. It doesn't necessarily help you reach out to the new faces. So definitely it's a necessary component, but it's one of several, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, you're underwater there.
We've got folks dialing in from all over the place via phones, noisy rooms, what have you.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like we're kind of winding things down here. We're right at our hour since we started. So would the folks like to give some closing thoughts? Actually, and maybe we should look at the chat and see what people are asking.
Okay.
So if you're in the chat, now's the time to ask some questions, and I will go check that here in just a moment.
If your name is firestarter.exe, please stop sending tweets at me.
Is that Travis?
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe, who knows?
So David, kind of leave us with some thoughts here while we collect some questions from the chat.
I would say that in my personal experience, you will have the most reach and the most retention if you're warm and open and don't close yourself to anyone. You might meet people that are maybe not who you'd normally meet just on a normal day, but this is a special case where that anyone you meet through gaming or whatever community you're starting, you already know you have something to talk about. So you can talk to anyone, you can get to know them past that first impression, which is often, a little awkward, a little shaky, and you can get to who they are as a person, and you can learn and you can grow, and that is what fighting game communities have meant to me over the years. I have grown immeasurably from all the people that I've met over the last 5 years of my life, and they've changed me, I've changed them, and at the end of the day, we've all been better and happier for it. And I wouldn't give any of that up for anything.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say we've got a question here, so let's hear that.
We've got a great question from Zukram. He's saying, any ideas on saving shrinking communities? I've seen a couple just slowly die.
That's a good question.
If I can weigh in on this a little bit, I think one thing that organizers and other people have to sort of give themselves a break on is that you cannot make communities out of nothing. You cannot save communities that are going to die, right? People are going to play what people are going to play, and you can help it or hurt it, but you can't ultimately decide it. So I think people, especially organizers, can sort of take a breather, right? Like step back, gain a little bit of perspective, and that's not to say let things die off or whatever, but give them your best shot. And after that, the community needs to respond to that. And they will either respond positively or they will respond negatively. But as long as you give it your best shot, I mean, that you've given it every chance it could possibly ask for.
Yeah, one person working in a community is not enough to make it happen. I mean, going off what you said, I mean, this is kind of part of the natural cycle, though. Things rise and things fall, scenes get bigger and scenes get smaller, and ideally what you're doing is you're learning from what happened and trying to improve on it from there. Now, there are things you can do, and I mean, this has a lot to do with like how in touch you are with your community and how much they're telling you. I mean, there's only so much you can do when you just don't know about it, for example. Is it that players don't feel like they're improving? Is it that they're not really seeing any new faces? Is it that perhaps they don't like a person, they don't like a venue? I mean, just getting on good relations with your scene, or if you're someone who's part of a larger community and therefore have difficulty, getting in touch with all the scenes that you're a part of, just having someone you can talk to and bounce off of. A huge part of the growth in the Northwest has been from not only us starting small and me getting a really good touch on just talking to each individual person, but as our scene grew, I generally have a few people from each scene who I can really talk to get a feel for it. For Blaze Blue, I often talk with, Huey and Travis, and I like nag them frequently. It's like, how are we doing? I mean, what are people thinking? What do I not know about? And a lot of it can happen from that. If you don't really like the scene, for example, and that's something that you're not able to get in touch with, then it makes it a lot more difficult if you don't really mesh. But you can't really force it. The best you can do is just try and figure out what the problems are and work on it from there. So in the end, there's no real answer. In the worst case scenario, hopefully things can change from there. There are always new games and there are always new people coming out. I mean, a big thing that happens is when people come in from a scene, they didn't just start playing for the most part. A lot of them have been playing for like maybe a year online, or maybe they've been watching a bunch of streams. They probably have an eye on it. Most people, their first response isn't exactly to go to an event. There are people who have decided, this is what I like to do.
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to mention specifically here is if you and we're talking on the scale of years, but if you are trying to culture a scene, make sure that you pay attention to the youth of your scene. The people who are the young kids today in 5 years will be the core beating heart of your scene. Make sure that they feel welcome. Make sure that they know that they are important. This is really, really critical.
A lot of communities no longer have, those OGs from the arcade running things. I mean, guess what? The 09ers are now in control.
Yes.
It's more than that. It's, I kind of think of it as ultimately everyone has an expiration date. For some people, it'll be when they feel like they are no longer get enough out of the game. For others, it may be until they die, which, hopefully is a very far expiration date we don't have to worry about. But what you want to do and what's important with a healthy scene is not hastening that expiration date on a player, keeping them involved and want to keep on playing.
Yeah, and even players who want to keep playing, as life goes on, the capacity in which they can take part changes, and be ready for that.
Some players will have kids, some will be just busy with life. It's difficult, and these people will go away. So you want to make sure that the people who are joining your scene, especially the ones who you really connect with, have a place. Talk to them. Let them know where they can get in other games. Because these will be the people who are with you when things get tough in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add that I think an important thing that's happened in our Air Dasher scene personally is that we, a lot of us will hang out outside of, we won't just go play Blaze, but we're like, hey, who wants to go to the park today? Or who wants to go to Mount Rainier today? Or just sometimes, you don't necessarily always have to play games. It's cool if you can bring the games along, or, let's go out and do something and then we'll play games when we get back. Just giving people different things to do, I think, is a good way to keep people interested in something that they may have like waning interest in. Because, for example, I have a friend who I played games with for a long time, but as time is going on, he doesn't want to play as much. But, I try to find different ways to get interest in him to like want to come out to something like, hey, if you do that, we could try this new RPG that's like 4 players. Or, hey, we could go like swimming or something and then play games for a little bit. And if that doesn't work out, we just leave. But I think it's important.
Is this how you lost Kaigu?
He's still around. I don't get why people think he's not around. He's at all the tournaments. He's at all the tournaments.
This is like one of the few things I enjoy from the National BlazBlue scene. Do not take this away from me. Kaigu is dead, everybody. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Everything is a lie.
You guys are confused.
I'll see you next week, DeVille.
But yeah, he quit fighting games apparently. Thanks, NorCal.
Oh my god.
What? No, what? We donated so much money to him. Are you kidding me? He should want to play fighting games till he dies because of us.
But yeah, I think that's actually, for me, if I was in that situation, I think that's what I would do. I just try to find other ways to involve those people in my life, trying to see if they want to hang out or something, because I feel like even beyond the games, like you can make some really good friends throughout the fighting game community and any community at all. and just by like doing normal things as well. Like, not to say games are weird or anything, but just mixing it up, it keeps it fresh and fun.
And
For
people
better
have-
or
Yeah, for better or for worse. And some people have different capacities. I did this one demo stream for a game called Cannon Brawl, and I worked with one of the developers, and we streamed it for 45 minutes. And at the end of 45 minutes, she looked like, like she had never played a game that long before, and it just like it took me so aback because I've literally played fighting games for more than 12 hours in a row before, and just like it didn't even break a sweat. But some people can't do that. It's just not how they're hardwired.
Yes, we call them filthy casuals.
Whoa, no.
That is tongue in cheek. That is.
I'm
Very
okay with this.
Of course you are, Dennis.
Yeah, there needs to be room for everybody at every level of ability or interest to be able to participate. If you can only play for 6 hours at a time, then everybody who can't play for 6 hours is just excluded
Only
by
6
default.
hours.
Only 6 hours. But everybody needs to feel comfortable playing as much or as little as they can, because a community has all kinds of people in it.
I mean, and it also goes to say when you're learning the game. I mean, some people learn better with others than, other people. Some people learn well in a quiet environment where there's little talking and they're just kind of working things out, while others will want to play, just a few matches and then talk it out, go over things. I mean, it can always just be different people learning in different ways or wanting to play the game in different ways. One thing we have in Seattle is we have players who are interested in tournaments and players who are interested or who are not interested in tournaments. And accommodating both can be really important to building up the scene as well.
Yeah. Let's see.
But yeah, just sort of echoing back on the sort of do other things. I think I'd have to say what has kept a lot of our tournaments really fresh in NorCal is that we have this sort of implicit appreciation for like kusoge or random terrible games, and we do our best to try and incorporate them into the tournaments. So we'll have, like single elimination Bushido Blade or something stupid like that, right? Like last Caliburst, we played the Daytona 500 board game, which is just incredibly trolly and like mean. And I think again, having an appreciation and a way to commune with people outside of the core fighting games is really important and is still a lot of fun.
I guess I have one more thought here on the question about if your scene is dying. Usually, in a lot of these cases, if you're looking at a scene as like one particular game, then each game has its own life cycle. But if you look at the community of people, of players, then those people generally are not just dropping off the map and cutting ties with everybody, with all of their friends. It's usually they're playing something else, or something else or a different game has caught their interest, or what have you. And if you can follow that thread of interest, then you can build a scene or a community that is resilient to the success or failure of any one game. And so you might need to define your community a little bit more broadly. Maybe it's the Seattle fighting game community as opposed to the Seattle Guilty Gear community, or maybe it's the Seattle 3D fighting game community as opposed to the Seattle Soul Calibur community. Maybe you need to branch out some, but I feel like if you are doing what you can, not just for the people who play the one specific game that you personally care about, but instead look at all of the people who are in that constellation of social networks and constellation of games and similar interests, then you'll have a much better chance of building a community which is going to remain healthy over time, and as people come and leave, and as people's interests change, and as games change, but you can find something that endures.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, thank you.
Yo, fighting games.
Fighting games, everybody. Well, I think we are at time here because I know that Dennis has a big tournament or something that he's at and getting ready to launch tonight.
Yep. People are yelling at me. I kind of don't want it to end.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard about this tournament. I heard like Huey was supposed to be there or something.
Wow.
I was too
crying
busy
inside.
helping build the community. Sorry, Dennis.
We-
Fault me.
It's you have to accept that if you're trying to take on that organizational role, you're going to have to sacrifice some things as a player. And we appreciate Huey's sacrifice here today.
And that's all the time we have tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
If I can just at least say one thing about, and maybe this is just a question to ask why everyone else does this, but like, we've all taken major roles in our community, and the reason I've always done it is it's been pretty selfish. I've done it for myself, to be honest. I enjoy these games. I want more people to play it with, and I want to surround myself by the people I enjoy, whether it's, people like Travis and Huey to all these Street Fighter guys I'm with right now. It's finding reasons to do it for yourself will give you motivation and strength when community building can be at its roughest. I mean, there are the great times. You'll be at a major, you'll see your friends doing well, and then there's rough times. Everything's dying. You're the only one there. Not too many people seem to care. Just finding your own personal reason for getting involved and stepping up into a role where you can help put something together will keep you strong and will keep your scene strong.
Dennis, that is the smartest thing I have ever heard anyone say about fighting games ever.
The answer to most problems is selfishness.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, basically,
For-
like, being self-motivated, right? External factors, the praise and adulation, the tons of women that you might get, those wax and wane, right? Like, those come and go. But if you want to stay at it, if you really want to have a relationship with fighting games and with the community that lasts years and years and years, it has to come from the inside. It has to be something from inside of you that drives it.
Yep, you'll never escape the late night Denny's runs, though.
Yep.
Those are forever.
Yeah. No,
If
outside
only
of,
they
We
weren't.
had better 24-hour places.
no way. I was gonna say outside of the thousands of dollars that we make at every
Oh.
battle for Seattle,
Right, right.
running the tournament. Dennis, Dennis is also on payroll. He makes the most out of us because he runs back.
I got
too.
$30K for Northwest Majors. Thank you very much.
Yeah, outside of all the money that we all make, for me personally, it's really just it might sound cheesy, but it's just getting to hang out and interact with everybody. Like, I do really like playing fighting games, and it's really fun to compete and win and lose and make fun of each other and call each other bad and stuff. But like beyond that, just like hanging out with your friends and your bros and there's just so much that I enjoy. I don't think much more about it than if I choose to spend X amount of time every month to try to gather my friends together to hang out and play video games, is it worth it? Like, there's not even a question. If one
Absolutely.
day it is a question and the answer is no, I might stop, but like I can't see that anytime soon. As long as I can get my friends together, it's worth it for me no matter what. So
Yeah, I will say that you don't have to do it all yourself.
that's
Like,
true.
Like, enlist your friends, enlist their roommates, like, enlist their little brothers and little sisters. Like, you don't have to do it all by yourself. If you try to do everything by yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. But with a community, find a handful of people who are willing to pitch in, and that makes all the difference.
Delegate.
But
It's something I'm not
Absolutely.
too great at
Reach
either,
out.
but it helps so much.
But when you do decide to like add more people, that means you have to add them to the payroll as well.
Right.
So because
Oh,
everybody
I
who
didn't
runs
think about
tournaments
that.
is paid.
Yep, so let's triple everybody's salaries at Battle for Seattle. So what's 3 times 0?
I mean, let's not assume it's going to be 0. It could change.
Whoa.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it
well,
could be negative amounts. So if you multiply
true.
everybody's
Well, I
salary,
think-
they'll
I
end
think
up
if-
owing you more.
We're
It's just
counting
a dream.
James, and I think
To
Jason's
conclude,
pretty negative.
I'm well in the red.
He's-
I'm well in
fighting
the red.
games
He's
make
so
a lot
done.
of money.
Oh, the loan sharks are coming for you.
This got on
Honestly,
a really sad note.
None of us would be here if we didn't get such amazing friends. And honestly, on a practical note, I've gotten so many connections in terms of like references, in terms of places I can go to. Like I can go around the world anywhere, and there's places I can go to that people will understand me.
Yeah, I hear you're really welcome in Okinawa now.
Let's not talk about that military base off Japan.
They just stand in Okinawa waiting for Dacid Bro to come.
We'll save that story for another time. I'm gonna let you close this out now because I know we're keeping Dennis overtime, but
It's fine. But if I were just to give advice to anyone who's planning an event, whether it be casual, tournament, random, mystery tournaments are awesome, by the way. Everyone do them. If I could give you my one secret, it's just say you guys are going for food. I get so many people just to come for
Northwest
food.
Major 6. I actually,
Well,
my
like-
only advertisement was we have some really good food, and the Japanese players were really impressed by
Oh
Paseo.
man. Do I still have the front pages? Yes. Go to northwestmajors.com. Very first thing is where to eat during Northwest Majors.
Yes, it makes
Like
all the difference.
we have a write-up on the Tekken community. We have all these Japanese players. You know what we decided to do front and center?
Where
Food.
to eat.
Where to eat?
Where do we get food as a group?
Yeah, it's definitely the most important. I mean, friends and stuff is cool too, and I did give a speech about that. But food is also very, very important in my eyes. Very, very important.
Very in my eyes and in
So-
my stomach.
In my,
to
in my heart.
summarize everything, if you want friends, make sure that you eat food. And that's what we've learned today on Indy 3.
Never eat alone.
Progress.
Especially after the tournament. During the
Makes
tournament
sense.
and before the tournament usually like messes up the tournament or a casual session. But if you guys all eat afterwards, then there's no like hassle.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't eat in the middle, but as TOs you can't, so don't do it.
So, maybe be careful about alcohol, Huey.
Oh. And another
good
thing.
night.
And good night.
Yeah.
And then finally, one last note, as a tournament organizer, if there is food at your event and you don't leave any for the TO and they're busy running stuff, dude, really?
It's like what,
Every
really, really.
There's a curse on your house. That is shame.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
Food.
All right. I think we're going to wind it down here. Thank you, everybody, for coming, both to Landis for coming out to the studio here, by which I mean my living room, and then both to David and Myung down in California, and then Dennis from here across the lake in Seattle.
Oh, maybe before we go, Myung, do you guys stream any events? What goes on in your area? Just if people are around and want to get involved.
Well, now that you ask, yes, we have two major events. They're each once a month, but they largely overlap, so it's basically the same guys coming through 2 times a month. One is NorCal Dogfight, which is actually coming up this Saturday. And the other is Cali Burst, which is going to be coming up it happens the first Saturday of every month. You can find those streams on twitch.tv/NorCal Dogfight and twitch.tv/The Brett. Some of you might know Brett and his stream.
Now, if
So
I
that's
was
where you can see those.
if I was, just living anywhere in the Bay Area, and just hypothetically, it was just some kind of silent urge of mine to go to an event for the first time, how would I find out how to get there?
I'm sorry, you broke up. What was that?
But if I was just trying to get to this event for the first time ever, how would I get in contact with people? How would I, get to the event?
So you would actually have to know some privileged information at that point, because technically this place is not open to the public, though it is actually by invite. We ask that people basically make themselves known before showing up. It's just sort of a courtesy thing, so we can know how many people to expect, and so everyone can kind of know each other. But However, the easiest way would be actually just to tweet me directly. I am at Totoro Slayer, so just feel free to reach out to me on Twitter and we can talk and I can tell you all about it.
Cool. I might do that.
Oh.
And Dennis, you must be running some things too. I've been hearing some click clacks in the background.
Yeah, a bunch of people came out tonight. This is great. So I mainly run events through our Land Center Game Clucks. This includes the monthly Saturday Slugfest series and then our weekly Thursday night fights. For Saturday Slugfest, our main streamer for the Pacific Northwest, besides Logical right here, is twitch.tv/Team Chaos. It's Chaos with a K. He was our streamer for Northwest Majors, and he also streams our monthlies as well. We generally get about 100 people or so for like 8 different games, including like some indie games and other stuff. I'm really proud that Seattle has a really diverse community of just people who are playing different games. Facebook, Northwest Street Fighter is generally the best place to join, even if you don't play Street Fighter or are not looking for Street Fighter. You can probably ask questions there. And then you'll always find forums and threads with links to the proper groups on various forums like Tekken Zaibatsu, Dustloop, Shoryuken. And then finally, our biggest thing coming up is going to be in the planning stages right now. We're currently planning Northwest Major 7. We've put a lot of growth this year, and we're putting even more effort into this one as well. So keep an eye out. We'll have some announcements very soon regarding that. I make it my absolute goal to make sure that each community is welcome there, not just the big ones. So, yeah, I don't know. Thank you all for watching this.
Yeah. I guess we two here can say, if you're in the Seattle area and are interested, there's the events that Dennis was talking about. There's also Battle for Seattle, which we are organized along with Dennis.
Yeah.
And you can read about that all at gamebreakers.com. Spelled with a Z.
Yeah, and he also hosts monthly as well himself.
Yep.
At the last Saturday of every month, I believe.
Yep.
Which also features BlazBlue, Marvel, Street Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
Tekken, I believe.
Yep. Lots of events in the area now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's actually when I originally started, that was not the case for people who were trying to play Air Dasher games. And now there's like 3 tournaments a month. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah,
like,
it's been
can't get better than that to me.
an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's it for us tonight. We are going to take a short break and get ready for our next segment of programming. But thank you everybody for tuning in, whether you're here specifically because of our fighting game community talk or whether you're here because of Indy 3. We appreciate you being here and look forward to sharing more with you. So we will take a short break here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thanks. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Or bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules for that.